you have one of these? I want you to get one of these with a big eraser so you can fill out your brackets and then make corrections after you make mistakes.
Yeah.
Let's talk March Madness. How cool is this tournament? This may be the most diverse year of college basketball I think I have ever seen. We had 7 different teams that were number 1 for large chunks of the season, and then we had a myriad of upsets, near upsets in the conference tournament play. At the end of the day, the number ones are the number ones, and that's a pretty good collection of number ones. That number 1 could have been Auburn. Number 1 could have been Duke. Number 1 could have been Houston. Number 1 turned out to be Florida. It could have been anybody else, including what I tend to think might be the most dangerous team in the bloody tournament, St. John's and Rick Pitino. But I'll tell you what, the top seeds and the second seeds are really impressive because the second seeds include a really good Alabama team and a Tennessee Volunteers team that was pretty explosive. And obviously the St. John's Red Wave and the other number 2 team is all things Tom Izzo and Michigan State. So this is going to be so much fun to see where this thing goes going forward. Best first round games because I love 8-9 matchups. I know there's going to be some shockers along the way. But how about in the South Regional? 8-9, Louisville versus Creighton, which has gotten better and better as the year has gone on. In the Midwest Regional, you got Gonzaga, Georgia, an 8-9 matchup there. Now, granted, this is not vintage Gonzaga basketball, but they're pretty doggone good. And then amongst the other really tough matchups in the West, number 7, Kansas, Bill Self, number 10, Arkansas, John Calipari. How cool are those first-round big boy matchups? Now, there are going to be some other really interesting games, some really tough games along the way. Amongst the other games you pay attention to, UCLA, Mick Cronin against Utah State. That's kind of a weird matchup. That's big-time basketball against a wannabe. St. Mary's has played so well this season. Are they equal to playing somebody in the Southeastern Conference? They're going to play them. We're talking about Vanderbilt. You got Colorado State, which was a shocker, winning the Mountain West Conference tournament. They got to go play Penny Hardaway and all things Memphis State. I just think there's some really cool games in the first round of the tournament. Now, there are going to be some blowouts along the way. I pity Nebraska, Omaha. Who? They're going to have to look across the floor and see all things Rick Pitino. I don't think that's going to be real easy. I pity whoever wins a play-in game between Alabama State and St. Francis of Pennsylvania, because they have to go play number 1 seed Auburn right out of the get-go. But, think about the ones that have gotten there for the first time ever. Grand Canyon College, or Grand Canyon University now, is there. Southern Illinois, Edwardsville. Who? SIUE. They've gotten to the tournament. Wofford's Terriers are in the tournament. So it is so cool because you got the marquee blue bloods, you got the wannabes who are hot, and you got the guys that are just, wow, we're excited we're going to be there. So we got all things March Madness to talk about. And then we got to talk about the question marks. I almost lost it. The NCAA, Bubba Cunningham, the head of the committee, just went on national TV and said, we have these standards and we have these rules and these regs, and we followed it. We followed it to a T. Please explain to me how North Carolina, with a 1-12 record in quad 1 games, who got bounced out of their own tournament, gets into March Madness. 1-12 against the best of the competition. How do they get in? Well, the West Virginia Mountaineers had 6 quad 1 wins and 10 conference wins in a pretty tough conference, Big 12, and a pretty tough travel conference for West Virginia. They got snubbed. Indiana, 5 quad 1 wins, even though they fired the coach. They got snubbed along the way. So I'll tell you, there's a lot of people really peeved at the selection committee for their rationale as to why North Carolina, which once upon a time had a great legacy, is in, and some other guys who played really well, deserved to get in, did not get in. So, John, I threw a lot of stuff at you. Here's the pencil with the eraser. You can fill out your brackets, but you can make changes if you wish. Let's just go forward here. Agree with the number 1 and 2 seeds? pretty cool cross-section of marquee teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I like those teams. And, I always kind of keep an eye on Auburn because Baker Mazar used to be here at San Diego State. Keep an eye on Kentucky, although I don't think they're one of the top two. They're probably a little further down.
Yes.
Keeping track of our Aztecs, but I think they seeded it well.
Yeah. Best first-round game? Anybody 8 versus 9 to me is just that's even Steven as it can get. And I think Louisville Creighton is going to be really fun to watch. And I'll tell you what, Kansas Arkansas, taking no survivors in that one. That's going to be a good first round game too.
Yeah, always lots of good games here. And, it's always there's a 12 that beats a 5 and 11 that beats a 6. So you try to find those spots as well. But I got to go back to this idea that, every year there's guys that get snubbed, right? It's always talking about it.
Not in your case when you want to expand the bloody thing to 96.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that we need to expand it. And then teams like North Carolina can get it. But then, we will be snubbing some really low tier teams. And I think that would make it even better.
So that is interesting there. Are you as offended about this whole North Carolina storyline as everybody else is? Because the whole country, college officials, guys in the NBA are barking about this. Why would the committee make that decision and allow a team that was 1-12 in quad 1 games to get in?
Well, it smells bad. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And, prior to us getting started on the podcast, I was in the drive-thru at In-N-Out Burger in Carmel Mountain Ranch. You actually smelled my burger when you rolled in. Anyways, I was listening to Chris Ello, and he made an interesting point on 97.3. He said that the all this focus on North Carolina, you don't deserve to be here. You guys are, you guys are getting the favoritism from your AD. Well, that's only going to motivate them to play even better to prove that they belong. And who are they playing? The San Diego State Aztecs.
So that's where we are. You're into college basketball, March Madness. Shoot a 3-point shot. I will allow those of you who shoot air balls to be part of the fans forum. Jump on board. Like what you saw? Do you dislike this North Carolina storyline? We kind of covered it from a lot of different angles on the basketball court, and we're not done.
Well, I want to ask you another question, if you could, about the overall bracket. 12 teams from the Big 12 made it. Or, yeah, 14. The SEC, excuse me, from the SEC, right?
14 from the SEC.
And so how many teams are in the SEC?
It's 18.
18. I mean, that's incredible. Because I remember when I first started following college basketball was in the 80s, and that was the era of the Big East. Yes. And then it became the ACC for like 2 decades. And I remember the ACC used to get 6 or 7 teams in, and we were all aghast. Well, they had 14 out of 18 in the Big 12, or excuse me, the SEC. And by the way, the SEC never used to be this good in basketball a long time ago.
SEC used to play football, right?
Yes, exactly. The only team that was any good in the SEC was Kentucky, and it may be one of the Florida schools.
Transfer portal has changed everything in college basketball, and there's money in the SEC. Now is obviously basketball dollars in the SEC.
Yeah.
That's why all these teams have gotten pretty good. Yeah, 14 in the SEC, which is really hard to believe. Okay, next topic.